Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. It is Arlo ASMR back again. I hope everyone's doing well and having a lovely start to their week. I thought for today I would do a little bit of a ramble of a trip that my partner and I did to, I say Europe because it's easier, but we really only went to Amsterdam and then the UK, and we visited Britain and Scotland. So it's not like we did too much in Europe, but it certainly was a trip to that part of the world. So I thought I would just do, a ramble of it, share some of the highlights of the trip, and I think originally I was going to try and do a video of all the like photos and stuff that we took during the trip and then do a voiceover, but I just didn't have enough videos to make it, I guess, as to flow as well as I wanted it to. So I think this route's going to be better, where I can just kind of talk about it and then maybe even show you guys some bits and pieces, because just give me a second. This is actually a file of our itinerary, basically. Itinerary, God, that word's, but a structure and schedule of everything that we booked and just all the documents as backups and stuff like that, like for our rental cars and all of our bookings for the rentals and stuff like that, like the houses and the Airbnbs. So there is a bunch of different stuff in here. I don't want to show too much because it's obviously got like our personal information on it, but there's like some Polaroid photos and a ticket stub of I think it was called the something Island Wildlife Park in the Highlands, in the Scottish Highlands. So I'll go through some of these little bits and pieces. While I guess just talking about the trip a little bit. And I also I found this little cute thing that my partner bought me. I think it's a capybara, but it's supposed to be a little like nightlight. I just haven't put batteries in yet. But I thought it made some some good tapping sounds. And then also just because it's around lunchtime and I'm hungry, I've got some green grapes to munch on while I talk. So without further ado, let's get into it, because I do really ramble a shit ton at the beginning of these videos. So let's go. To start off the video, the reason for going to Europe was because my girlfriend's best friend was getting married to a Scottish man in Scotland. So he lives here, but they flew over to Scotland to get married because a lot of his family couldn't fly over to Perth, Western Australia. So they took the wedding to them, which was really cool. And wasn't really something I was expecting to do, if I'm being honest, because I think both my partner and I were like, we're not super I guess I don't want to say not financially stable, because we're as stable as we can luckily be, but there's not an abundance of extra cash. So to fund both of us going to Scotland, it was looking pretty pricey. But when we got to London, we got there at like I think 6 a.m. or something stupid like that. So it was, yeah, it was a difficult one to, I guess, kind of navigate because we got in at 6. We kind of hoped that it would take us a couple of hours to get through, you know, customs and all this, the border security and stuff. But we actually got up really, like, it was really quick. And I think we were done by, I want to say 8:30. And that's a pretty good like time period for Heathrow, I would say, from what I've heard. So we actually kind of got out of the airport at, yeah, pretty early, and our check-in was only at 2 p.m, as most check-ins are. Sorry, I want to have a quick grape. I love a diet grape. But, so, we made our way over to the hotel, and it was really cool being able to sit in a double-decker bus. I think we were the only people at the top because everyone else was not a tourist. So, that was really cool, and I got like a video of us just being tourists and really like enjoying the new adventure, I guess, that we were on. But the hotel was really good. They let us check in all of our things, so we kind of just dropped all of our stuff off and then went into the heart of London, I guess. I wasn't too keen on doing a lot of tourist things because I am quite an anxious person and I don't like big crowds, and London, pretty big damn crowd. So we did a fair few of the things, like we went to Trafalgar Square, I saw Big Ben, I saw the London Eye from afar, like we saw the bridge, the London Bridge, and then we just kind of walked around, yeah, like Buckingham Palace, I think it's like the Buckingham Palace part, but yeah, like where they do the ceremonies and all the kind of cool stuff for the public. We had rocked up on a day where I think they were doing like some sort of guard changeover, so they had all the guards, you know, doing like a parade type of marching thing, and it was packed, absolutely packed, and a lot of people didn't know where to stand. I think there were a lot of people standing where they shouldn't be standing. A lot of, like, everyone just on the walls of the palace, like the fences and stuff. It was really cool to see it. It's beautiful. There's a lot of like gold plated or gold covered accents and parts of the surroundings of the palace, so that was pretty cool. Also a lot of South African mentions in England and in London. I saw a lot of statues about like the Boer War and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really, really interesting. I guess, you know, obviously South Africa was kind of colonized by, I actually think we were more Dutch than British, but there were definitely still some British in there. But yeah, it seems like we've got a lot of South African things, like place to explore. So, the first night in London, we just kind of chilled. I got my eyes open to chicken selects, which Australia doesn't have, but I believe it's just a McDonald's chicken tender, which was killer. We had to get up really early for our flight out to Amsterdam as well, so that was pretty rough, especially when you're already jet lagged. But we were not far from the airport because of the fact that we were only going to be in London for like 24 hours before we had to fly over. So for us, it didn't make too much sense to try and be too far out from the airport. But our flight to Amsterdam, I think, was like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. I feel like the moment we got up in the air and we got situated and comfortable, we were being told that we were about to land and like start preparing for that. So certainly no complaints. It was really cool to just kind of have that over and done with. Flying into Amsterdam was beautiful. Like, you could see all the different like farmlands and like fields for different, I guess, different produce, or even just to look good, tulips and stuff like that. But it was really cool flying in and seeing all of it. I'll hopefully have a cool video from the flight to pop up in this video. But yeah, Amsterdam is gorgeous, and I think I will definitely go back to Amsterdam, and probably not for the reasons that everyone would think I would want to go back to Amsterdam, or for the reasons people would want to go to Amsterdam. So we landed in Amsterdam. I believe our Airbnb was around a 30-minute trip from the airport, which also wasn't too bad. It was just via public transport, so that's actually really pretty good. The public transport was shockingly easy to navigate, and I say that with a bit of confidence because I have, I guess, experience and a knowledge of speaking Afrikaans, and Afrikaans is quite close to Dutch, I would say. Like, it's not exactly the same, but there are a lot of words that, you know, are either very similar or almost exactly the same, and you can make sense of things. So with my knowledge of, you know, some of the words in the language, and my girlfriend's impeccable like direction and geographical skills, we were able to navigate it pretty easily, and that was really fun, to be honest. Like, it was a really fun experience having to navigate public transport in a different country, and especially a different country that you don't speak the language. Trying to think. So when we got to Amsterdam, but one of the first things we did was kind of get situated with our Airbnb, and then we went out and started looking for the coffee shops. So the coffee shops in Amsterdam are the ones that you can buy legal marijuana and smoke in the cafes. Those are really cool. There were a few that were like right around the corner from our Airbnb, so at night we actually just ended up picking up a couple of joints and smoking them before we kind of went back to our Airbnb for the night, which was really cool. The edibles were a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm being honest. We tried a couple, and we were warned that they would be like pretty is usually the case. Which, fair enough, it's hard to kind of extract the taste of weed when you're having an edible, but yeah, it was really nice to not have to deal with such a strong, overpowering flavour of cannabis. It's not my favourite, if I'm being honest. We tried to do some of the touristy things in Amsterdam. We went on one of the canal tours. We wanted to go to the Anne Frank house and the Vincent van Gogh museum, but both of them. So for the Anne Frank house, I was told that it's pretty tight spaces, and I hate tight spaces. I get pretty claustrophobic, so that was pretty much a no-go for me. And I know the story of it, it would be interesting to see where it kind of, not where it started, but where some of her story was, but not for me, so we missed out on that, which I'm not too fussed about. Maybe I'll work on my fears of claustrophobia and try it again, but I don't feel like I missed out too much. We also ended up going to Body World, which was incredibly weird, but so cool. I didn't have much of an interest in it, but Jamie, my girlfriend, really loves it. And I don't know if you guys know what Body World is, but I'm pretty sure the guy's name is Gunther, or something, Gunther something, or Van Gunther. I don't know. I'll put the name up. But basically, he was the guy who invented, it's not embalming, but, what's the word? God, I'm also blanking on that. It's like plastination or something, but he basically figured out how to preserve bodies with fluids and stuff, but to preserve them completely as they are. So he's actually just got a full museum of real, and now this is the dicey part. A lot of people say they are volunteered and it was all consensual. Others say that some of these bodies were not given to this person or whatever, but I'll leave those politics behind. It was a really cool thing to see, just medically. So this doctor basically preserved these donated bodies and would preserve them in really interesting ways. So there's one man who is basically just from the neck up, his head, and it's been cut right down the middle and then put like that, so you can see the brain and the skull and how that, the layers and everything are. It was really creepy, but really interesting. So my partner loved it. I liked seeing her, just absolutely engaged in something, and so yeah, it was really cool to see, and it was a really interesting experience, and I don't think I would have done if it wasn't for her prompting me to do it. So yeah, I would recommend, if you ever go to Amsterdam, I think they also do tours around the world. They'll come and do exhibitions. I think there was recently the Body World exhibition in Western Australia, so don't know if you have to go to Amsterdam for it, but that's where I think the home museum is. You can go to Amsterdam and you can go to that museum. But yeah, it was really cool. Very interesting. Probably a lot more weird because of how many joints I'd had leading up to it, but that's neither there or here, so here or there, either one. We also ended up seeing Doja Cat in Amsterdam, and that was a really cool experience. we had seen Doja Cat, and I just could not get enough of her stage presence. And I don't think she has to try very hard to perform and to put out like a natural energy, which is really cool. And she also sounded really good, which is always, I think, a little bit of a fear when you're going to see an artist live. Like, you don't expect them to sound perfect, but there are certainly some people who you are just devastated by because they sound not what you thought they would sound like. So yeah, it was nice to not be disappointed by that, I guess. The Doja Cat concert was actually the night before we were flying out, and once again we flew out pretty damn early, so that was actually a pretty rough one. I think I actually remember like walking home from the concert at like 11:30 or 12 at night, and the sun, not the sun, but the sky was still like light blue, like the sun was setting. And I just remember feeling like so in love and in awe of how much time you had in your day because of that. It was the same in Scotland, if I'm being honest. But yeah, we'll get to that. So yeah, we really absolutely enjoyed the Doja concert. We got so high beforehand, which obviously makes it better. The only thing I will say is like concerts nowadays are really hard to feel the vibe and the energy of, because everyone's just on their phone. And all the time, I have no beef with people who want to record and, you know, collect a memory of the event or whatever, but do we have to record the whole thing the whole time? I feel like every now and then I got my phone out, I recorded like, you know, the chorus of one of my favourite songs, and then I put that bad boy down because I just wanted to enjoy the concert. And I do feel a little bit old saying that, but to be fair, when I was 21, I felt that way. Like when I was 21, I wasn't even taking my phones to some of these concerts because I just knew I was going to be getting so like rowdy that I would potentially lose it. So yeah, it's quite different to see how concerts and festivals and shows and just any live performances are evolving, because I think a lot of artists are also getting frustrated with the fact that everyone's just on their phone. Like, yeah, it was wild, but in saying that, the Amsterdam concert was actually pretty good in comparison to other concerts I've been to and stuff, and I really enjoyed the kind of the vibe that she was, you know, that she was creating, but that also the concert goers and the fans were reciprocating, so that was nice. But yeah, finished really late. We got home really late. We had to wake up super early. I felt really bad because there's a lot of like cobblestone roads in Amsterdam, and while we were making our way through the neighbourhoods, it was so early and we were being so loud with our like bag wheels. So at one point I was just like carrying both like heavy bags to just reduce some of the noise that we were making. Because we were like walking around the town at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if anyone knows much about the life of the Amsterdam or just the Netherlands folk, but they are incredibly big, incredibly big on work-life balance. There's a lot of places that don't open until quite late in the day, like maybe 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and then they close quite late in the night. So I'm not saying it's like everyone in their society, but a lot of what we noticed was that, yeah, early mornings, not a lot of activity going on, but, you know, any time after midday, or, you know, 10 a.m, 11 a.m. onwards, and everything was pretty lively and busy. So we certainly felt business and the content, so I felt actually kind of just a little bit bad just walking through and looking at, the people and then not paying them or interacting with them in any sort of way. So a lot of the time my girlfriend was like, your head was just down looking at the street while we walked through it. And I was like, yeah, look, I felt like guilty almost. But it was really interesting to see, and I love the culture that the Netherlands has for sex workers. I love that it's a respected, like career or employment. There are actual rules and like regulations and restrictions around the safety of people who are doing sex work. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm all for it. I wish more countries would adopt that sort of idea and concept and way of treating people who decide to do sex work. But I know we've probably got a long way to go from there. But yeah, like there were signs, all around the red light district saying, unless you've paid and you've gotten consent to take these photos, like if you are found taking photos that you weren't allowed to, it's illegal and you'll get fined and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, good. The other thing is that the red light district reeked of piss. So in Amsterdam, because I think public urination is such a big problem because there's so many, it's such a party central kind of hub, they had these, like, not private at all, might I add. Like, I didn't use it because I didn't feel comfortable doing it, but they just had these, like, urinals in the middle of the street where there's no door or anything. Like, you walk up to it and your back is facing us, and then there's like these two little walls that just block your junk. So I wasn't a fan. Definitely had performance anxiety, and yeah, was not using those. But because of those, they smell so bad in the streets. So yeah, to each their own with that. But I wouldn't recommend using one, and I certainly wouldn't recommend hanging around those areas that do have a lot of them. And it seemed like the red light district had a fair few of them, because I guess that's where lots of drunken men like to hang out. Yeah, would recommend, just going in and being respectful about it when you go and see it. But it's definitely a cultural experience, that's for sure. Alright, so the fun stuff really, not that the whole trip wasn't fun, but Scotland was the creme de la creme. That was what we were going for. We got there on like a Thursday, and the wedding that we were going there for was, I believe, on the Saturday or the Sunday. So that weekend we got to Edinburgh, and we hired a rental car, and we had to drive all the way down to Scotland's most southerly point, to a little town called, Port Patrick, which was close to where I think the groom came from and where he lived and stuff. So they were having the wedding in Port Patrick, which is like a little seaside town in Scotland. Now, that was spectacular, just that drive down there. We ended up meeting up with some of the bride and groom's friends for some cocktails on Thursday night, and then we went to a Airbnb that was actually used to be a church and got renovated for Airbnb, and I believe it slept I think it was 6 couples, five couples, so we could sleep 10 people. Probably more if you were happy to sleep on the couch, but there were 5 bedrooms. So that, I took so many photos and videos of that one, so I will be showing photos and videos So that was, yeah, it was really cool to see, and it was a really gorgeous place, and it was like on a cliff edge, so it was just beautiful seeing the ocean from that perspective. And there was also, at this point, there was a place, or a spot, I guess, in the ocean called the Nine Tides. And once again, I got a video, so I'll put it up here, but it was actually a really, it was a really interesting point where a whole bunch of tides met at one point, and there were, like it says in the name, 9 different tides all going at different directions, so all kind of interacting with each other and clashing with each other, causing what looked like an absolute nightmare to be stuck in. That's not a rip I think you would survive, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I got a bit of information about that, the 9 tides as well, so I'll just put it up here because I took a photo of it. And if the photo doesn't look good, then maybe I'll just put a little bit of information or whatever. But either way, it was, yeah, really cool to see. And yeah, at the most southerly point of Scotland, so that's always fun to explore. But once we did that, we kind of just made our way back up to the little town we were staying in for the weekend and got settled in. We just explored a little bit of the town. We obviously did wedding things. We got really drunk at the wedding. The bride and the groom looked just beautiful and so handsome. Obviously the groom was in his kilt, and all of his groomsmen were in kilts as well. And I just don't think you can go wrong with a kilt, to be honest. I'm actually really devastated that I didn't even think about getting myself one for the wedding. But next time, hopefully not for them. They'll hopefully be married for the rest of their lives, but next time I have to attend a Scottish wedding, hopefully I'll be prepared. But yeah, the wedding was actually so beautiful, and the groom had a cousin, I think, or something like that, who played bagpipes, so he was actually playing the bagpipes for most of the ceremony, so that was really, really beautiful. The place they had it in was like a separate gardens type of location, and then they had their reception at a castle type of thing, but it was a hotel, sorry, but it looked like a little mini castle, and it was really cute. And it was yeah, like on a cliff, but like ocean side, really. So that was really beautiful, and it basically just looked out on the rest of the town. So a really nice location for a wedding. If I were to ever suggest someone get married, I would bring that location up. So once the wedding was over, that's when Jamie and I really started kind of making our way into the rest of our trip. And it was so fun, guys. Like, it was just such a spectacular time. We started at, obviously the southerly point, and we didn't go up to like I think it was the Isle of Man or Isle of Skye, but we didn't end up going that far, but we did get to the Highlands. So we went to the Cairngorms, or Gorms, I'm not too sure how you say that, Cairngorms. We went to a couple of different spots that were filming locations for Harry Potter. So the Forbidden Forest, I think it is, and where Hagrid's hut is. We went to those 2 locations. We went to the Glenfinnan Viaduct, which is where that iconic scene of the train over that big bridge on the water, it's filmed in Scotland, so we went to go and see that. Unfortunately, we did not make it in time to actually see the steam train, but the rest of it was really cool. because you'll probably be cold and hot and experience all the temperatures in one. But we also then, I think, it was a little bit harder to do, but we were able to find Dumbledore's grave. So he has like that little island in the movie. That's his grave. And yeah, that's in Scotland as well. We were able to see that, and that was just beautiful, really. Scotland has so many different beautiful parts, and I fell in love with it. Like, I was ready to move there. I was looking for jobs. I was seeing how easy it would be to immigrate. We passed a couple of really beautiful smaller coastal towns that were like obviously keen on repopulating and increasing the population of their town, so they were offering land and houses for very cheap and to not just Scottish residents. So I was almost ready to spend every cent of my savings to move to Scotland. I still might, but I struggle with the cold a lot, and I think Scotland gets cold a lot. I think we were very lucky when we were there. There were only like 1 or 2 really cold days, and when I say really cold days, I even wasn't even that cold. It was just colder than what I'm used to, because obviously I live in Australia and I am acclimated to pretty hot temperatures. But yeah, so travelling around the Highlands were beautiful. We stopped in and saw a lot of the different ranges and like mountains. We ended up also like staying on the Loch Ness lake, like the lake. I think it's just Loch Ness because Loch is a lake. But there was an Airbnb like on the lake, and we were able to get a booking there, and it was so beautiful. The view from our room was quite literally just looking over Loch Ness, and it was really cool to learn a bit more of the folk stories and all the sightings that people have allegedly seen of the Loch Ness monster. But it was a beautiful drive, like it really was. I think like every 20 minutes I was asking to stop, or I was stopping the car so that we could take a photo of basically the same thing but just different view. And yeah, I felt so centered and just so happy. There was so much to take in, and I feel like I did it, I did take it all in, but at the same time I feel like I just could not even take in as much and comprehend all of the beauty and just all of the different little bits and pieces. There was at one point 4 people like hiking on like this huge range, and they looked like ants from where we were, so I was like zooming in, and yeah, they were just hiking through the Highlands. And now that would have to go onto my bucket list. Like, I think that would be just such an incredible experience, and it looks like it's doable. So yeah, would love to do that. So we kind of made our way through that. We obviously stopped in at Glasgow and Edinburgh and did all the fun like touristy things there. We went to see the Edinburgh it's obviously all quite old buildings, and can't really go wrong with that. It's interesting to see how building and architecture has evolved, how it's changed. Also how it's kind of moved from all the intricate details that it used to be, you know, with like masonry and carving the stones and making things really maximalist, I would say. We've definitely moved away from that, which is a bit of a shame because I think it's beautiful. The more intricacies to architecture, the better, really. Like it's more fascinating to look at. But, you know, to each their own, and I think everyone has a different kind of preference on what's beautiful and what's not, so that's all good. But yeah, I found Scotland to be just absolutely gorgeous, and all the green and all the mountain ranges, the roads were brilliant. I was just so in love with how smart everyone is. Like, of a driver in Scotland, we didn't have any issues at all with anything that we thought we were going to have an issue with. Like, we thought we were going to struggle with roundabouts. It's so intuitive, and if you know how a roundabout works and you just confidently use it, it's the smoothest flowing, like, traffic moderator I've ever seen in my whole life. It was so good to not have to stress about driving in another country. The food was also, thank God, it was, you know, pretty British coded, so that was never an issue really. We loved all the big breakfasts, the roasts you couldn't go wrong with. The food and the drink was relatively cheap there. The Scottish folk know how to party though, man. Like, I don't know what it's like with you guys in your countries, but here, like in Australia, if you order like a single shot of like Jack Daniels and a Coke, you'll get a glass that's about this tall with about that much, you know, Jacks and your ice, and then the Coke or whatever mixer you've asked to put it in, or to put in it. In Scotland, it was like almost like people didn't want to drink the mixer. I asked for a single shot of Jack's and Coke, and they gave me like a little like whiskey glass. They filled like half of it before the ice was even put in the glass, guys. Before the ice was put in the glass, they filled it halfway with Jack's, put this big old whiskey ice ball in there, and then got the Coke, like the, you know, the mixer, the dispensing hose thing, got the Coke one and did like a tss, and that was it. It was actually the most comical thing ever. So I was like, oh sorry mate, like can you fill it up like to the top? And he was just like, oh, are you sure? I was like, yeah, please. Please, man. So it was very interesting to see how, you know, different people drink their drinks, but yeah, and it was so cheap as well. Like, that was a single shot, and then when we got like a bigger drink, I would ask for a double shot. I think a double was like an extra 50p or something like that, so like pence. Like, it was not even £1 to get a whole extra shot. And like here, it's basically double. Like, if you ask for a double, you're paying, you know, at least 40 or 50% extra. So that was, you know, obviously quite fun and quite cool to not have to go broke getting drunk. I also thought the food was better. Like, everything tasted fresher. The eggs tasted way more farm fresh. Like, creamy and, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, but just so creamy. And not just the yolk. like the egg whites as well. It was weird. I could not explain it. But I remember coming back here and being like disappointed by the lack of creamy eggs. Yeah, the beef was nicer in Scotland. And don't get me wrong, Australia's got pretty nice beef too, so not saying all of it, but like I feel like when you just go to a pub or something in Australia, you're not getting high quality beef unless you're ordering like Wagyu steak beefs and stuff like that. Or Wagyu beefs, patties. But in Scotland, I felt like even just ordering the most normal beef burger, it tasted like it was A5 Wagyu. So yeah, interesting to see and to compare. Obviously, Scotland and Australia, I would say, can't really compare them because they are just very different in terms of, landscape, temperatures, cultures and all of that. Or maybe the culture's pretty same. Sorry, I'm just going to pause because I don't know what the sound is. Alright, hopefully it's kind of done. But yeah, so I really, really enjoyed Scotland. I thought it was very beautiful. I don't think that the like 9 or 10 days or something that we spent there was enough, to be honest. So I truly hope that we get to go back and, get to spend a bit more time there and do some more of the tourist things. But yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough. Like I loved the food. I loved the community and the culture. Everyone was pretty nice. I loved going to Tesco's and Morrison's. Their meal deals are mad good. We can't get meal deals like that here in Australia, and it's actually quite devastating. Same with the Greg's bakery. That Greg's sausage roll and that like the steak. I think it was like a steak bake or something like that. Oh my god, man, that was life changing. I think I got one of those like at every single time we needed to stop and fuel up. Alright, so like at the end of it, we ended up flying back to London because that's how we were getting home, and that kind of flight all went smoothly and stuff. But when we left London to go back home, or to come back home, we ended up like we had a connecting flight, yeah, so really shouldn't have happened. But what happened is our first flight ran over by like 5 or 10 minutes, and we asked the flight attendants. We were like, damn, okay, like is our connecting flight, are we gonna miss that? And they were like, no, like we've organised it with everyone at the airport, and the flights that need to wait for the people on this flight, they're gonna wait, blah blah blah. So we're like, okay, cool. We still rushed to our next gate because we didn't want to fuck around or anything. And by the time we got there, the gate was closed, and it was like literally 10 minutes. Like we were late by 10 minutes, and we were told that it was going to be held. So they were like, I think it was like 60 or so people who had all missed their flights due to this kind of error, and we all had to stay in Malaysia for like an extra day, which was a bit of a fuck around, but something that we had to do, I guess, because there was just no other flights out. And the airline was really good enough and nice enough to give us vouchers, so they booked us all into the airport, the hotel near the airport. They gave us vouchers like to get to and from the airport and the hotel breakfast, lunches and dinners and snacks at the airport and stuff, so could have definitely been worse. So I certainly don't want to complain about it. But I feel like, you know, when you are just on that like last stretch of going home, like you're yearning for your bed, you're yearning for a proper shower, you're yearning to see your friends and your family and your kids or your animals or whatever you've got waiting for you at home. For us, it was our dog. It had been like 2 weeks of not seeing him and 2 weeks of getting like updates through Messenger and stuff, so we were just really keen to see him and really keen to show him that we weren't leaving forever, because I don't know why every dog just thinks you're disappearing on them, even when, you know, for their whole lives you've always come home. But, you know, they can't understand that, so that's not their fault. But yeah, so when there was that delay, it was frustrating to say the least, to have that kind of like, oh well, you're not getting home just yet. But they handled it beautifully and they took care of us, so we are very lucky. I know some people have had, you know, horror stories when it comes to their flights being cancelled and things being messed around, so we were very lucky and I won't complain. But yeah, also would have liked to have just gotten home. Like I had to call in, I had to tell work that I wasn't going to be able to make it into like work because I was supposed to be working the next day, but I obviously couldn't because I was going to be in Malaysia and then on a flight the next day technically. So yeah, they were a little bit like, oh, okay about it, but I just had to like show them the like letter and the cancellation we got from the airport, and they were like, oh, okay, all good. I think they just assumed I wanted an extra day off, but you know, got an extra day off. Yeah, the flight home was alright. It was just, you know, long and boring. A little bit hard to get to sleep because we were just so like wound up and ready to come home. But overall it was a really wonderful time, and it was really cool to do some travelling. That was kind of the first time I'd properly travelled overseas, besides immigrating from South Africa to Australia. That's not really for a holiday, you know. So it was really cool to travel, and to travel as a proper adult who had never had who didn't have their parents, I guess, doing everything for them, because it is really different traveling as a kid who your parents do everything and take care of all the logistics of things, to being an adult and being the one taking care of all the logistics. It's different and a little bit freaking daunting, but can be done and it's worth it. So yeah, do it. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I'll probably end it here because I don't think there's anything else really. If there's anything else, I'll just include the videos because yeah, just enjoy it. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you guys were able to enjoy the rambles. I said I was gonna do things with this guy and I just didn't, so apologies my dudes. I'm just full of lies, I think. Not actual, but you know. But yeah, take care of yourselves and take care of one another, and I will see you in the next video.